subsidized, you might get in, but in the meantime, you might be living in a car, living on a friend's couch, or even living on the streets. The other big driver is mental health and substance abuse issues. And we need to find a way as a society to deal with mental health issues through our public health and medical system rather than our criminal justice system. And currently, and of course, substance abuse is a subset of that, and often it's a form of self-medication for mental health issues. So it's really a lack of access to preventative and ongoing mental health treatment. When you talk to, for instance, Jeffco County Sheriff or law enforcement officials, they feel a big part of what they're doing in our prison system currently is dealing with what would better be dealt with through mental health. And they don't do it well. And as law enforcement professionals, they're the first to say they shouldn't be the ones to do it, but it gets foisted on them. And that's not an efficient use of your taxpayer money because it's very, very expensive. Nor is it anything close to the best patient outcome, because that's not what they're designed to do. They're designed to punish people and lock them up and keep them guarded. They try to do their best, they try to have a few health professionals, and they try to administer services, but that's not what the criminal justice system does. So we need to do a better job on the public health side, making sure that people have access to ongoing preventative mental health treatment, substance abuse treatment, and then yes, more affordable housing options near where people work. Yes?
I've been in independent my whole life, and you asked what we could do, what could we help you get to us better?
Independent?
Yes.
Yeah, but so, go ahead.
I think that in the general election, if you become the Democratic candidate, you have an extraordinarily good chance of becoming governor. But I think all the money in the Democratic Party and the powers that be are rallying against you for one of your opponents right now. So I think it's really important this year for the first time, the independents get to vote in whichever primary we choose to. And so I think you should reach out to independents to vote in the Democratic primary for you.
That's right.
So that we have someone real representing us instead of the...
Thank you for saying that. I should have said that. Here's the thing. This is the very first. This is the very first primary in Colorado. Every single independent voter will get a ballot in the mail in June. And every single voter can decide, I want to return the Republican ballot, I want to return the Democratic ballot, or I want to return any ballots. What I need to do, and what we need to do, and what you need to do, is help make sure that, and by the way, I think that a big part of the industry and consumers are unaffiliated. I think that's first of all, that's the plurality in our state. There are more unaffiliated Republicans or Democrats. I don't believe this based on data, it's just my hunch, but that is even more pronounced in the industry. I think people don't like either party very much. So this is a way that unaffiliated voters have a voice. So rather than traditionally independent voters have often been forced in a general to pick between the lesser of two evils. Oh, and they say, I don't know, who do I pick? We can provide a way that you can help somebody that you're actually excited about in the general get there now. And that's what we need your help to do. Yes, I am neck and neck in the polls. But I am something of an insurgent in the sense that, yes, there are kind of the Democratic Party establishment that are not going to be the main ones that are with me. I can hold my own. I have some of them, and that's great. And there's this insider partisan thing, and I even got a third of them, and that's a wonderful thing, not enough to win. So there are some, and they know that I care about my environmental policies and other things. But to win, we need to excite the independent voters. Now, you know, again, I'm excited about voting. So like my very first mailing of my campaign, we did on hemp paper. I've flown a hemp flag over the United States Capitol. You know, and you know, I'm the first major candidate to do that, right? Like, there's always some odd, I don't want to say odd because they're my friends, but libertarian who does that, you know, 10 years ago. You know, there's an independent candidate who gets 16 votes that, you know, did something. But we are a serious candidate, a co-front runner. I mean, I am, you know, one of 2 or 3 people likely to be the governor of Colorado. And that's a very different thing when that kind of candidate does their first mailing on hemp paper. That's an exciting thing. So that's kind of why we, again, want to excite independent voters. So thank you for bringing that up. Many people are independents. And by the way, if they are Republican, they can switch to independent to vote for them. They don't have to go all the way to Democrat, then they hate the Democrats. But they can go part of the way and just say, I want to become independent so I can vote for Jerry in the primary.
In the same vein, I know everybody here cares about marijuana, but I know that everybody here cares about a lot of other things too.
Absolutely.
Maybe you should tell them what you're saying.
So some of the other things, I mentioned briefly renewable energy, and I'm excited there's actually a tie to the energy intensive reductions, but we want to move our grid to 100% renewable energy by 2040, to be in the forefront of states that do that with solar and wind energy, green jobs that can't be outsourced, a different kind of green job than your industry has, that's also green jobs. And we have this today, 700 jobs in Pueblo making wind turbines, opportunities for farmers on the Eastern Plains to have wind and solar on their property, making a little extra income. A lot of my professional work has been in education. So I was a business person, and then I started a couple of schools. I started some public charter schools here in Adams County. New America School works with new immigrants. I started a school for homeless youth in Denver, so I've actually worked with the homeless population. And one of the biggest gaps we have in our state in education is the lack of universal preschool and kindergarten. And so if you have young kids or you know people with young kids, all they get is half a day of kindergarten. They have to pay for full day, usually $400 a month, and preschool they have to pay for usually twice that. So I'm a father of a 6-year-old and 3-year-old. I can afford that for my kids. That is unfair that my kids would start at an advantage over families that can't afford to pay. Especially as the middle class, because guess what? We actually do have a few slots for very low income for preschool and kindergarten. So if you're making less than $24,000 a year, you probably get free preschool and you get free kindergarten. But if you're middle class or even struggling to be middle class, you don't get it free and you can't afford it. And so your kids are at a disadvantage. So that is and that, by the way, this also ties into the cost of living and affordability factors for young families with kids. Because one of the things that drives the cost for families is, oh, does the spouse have to stay out of work? Or do I have to pay for daycare, which is very expensive? So this will help a lot on that affordability. We talk about healthcare. I'm for getting to a universal model. There's different ways to do that. Nationally, I've championed, Medicare for all. I want to be clear, and this is considered a more progressive opinion for those who are Republican or conservatives, and conservative would support me. What I always want to indicate is, in no way, shape, or form does this prohibit supplemental or private insurance on top of that. It's just saying there's a basic level of healthcare insurance for everybody. Every other Western industrialized nation does this. There's no reason we shouldn't do it. It's incredibly inefficient that we do it. We pay more because we don't do this, because one of the things you have, if you have a common payer, is they can then negotiate for prescription drugs. They can then negotiate with providers for procedures. So we can do more with less. We pay too much for too little now, and we can do it better through a Medicare for all time model. So those are some of the things that I'm running on. I think one of the things I also touted about universal health care, and it's going to be hard to get there, but I think states will be in the forefront of figuring out that path. It's not going to be the federal government. And it's very good for small business too, because I was a small business person. Really the brunt of our health care falls on small businesses now. As a person who used to employ 3 people, then 5, and then 8, this was an enormous distraction for my core business, on top of just the cost of figuring out how to administer and run healthcare benefits for my employees. I did not want to have to do that. In no other country, in Germany, in England, in Sweden, in Canada, an entrepreneur doesn't have to have that set of things to worry about. They have enough to worry about to succeed in your core business. You don't have to learn the intricacies of HR benefits and hiring an insurance company and reading through forms that are almost impossible to understand, distracting from your core business. So I think this is a boom to entrepreneurship in general. If our state can get this right, we already are a hotbed of entrepreneurship. Some of you might know a lot. The other part of my professional background, I was part of the startup economy. I co-founded something called Techstars in Boulder, which is now in a couple dozen cities. It's a startup accelerator. But it would be an enormous boom for our already strong entrepreneurship and startup economy if entrepreneurs didn't have healthcare just added to that list of things that they need to do. So those are some of the other things that I'm running on. Yes?
So people also were active in helping with passing IS 300 and general social consumption. Since we're advocates, what is your stand on social consumption? You say you want to regulate like alcohol. Does that also mean that you're pro like establishing some sort of social consumption for businesses?
Yeah, so these are battles that are fought in each municipality, and I'm fine with what even Amendment 64 says. I mean, remember, it doesn't force any municipality to have dispensaries. I'm totally for letting each community decide how they want to do it. They do that with liquor too. I mean, and there's no problem I have with that. So I know that this is a very exciting discussion, and I think it's with Denver, whatever other communities are having it about, is what should those rules be around social consumption. So again, statewide, there's not a model. It's just saying we want to work with you in each community to be able to regulate it the way that makes sense for your community.
Follow-up question. Another issue has been last year was a matter of being able to deliver cannabis, especially for patients. And it actually went all the way to the governor's office, and he vetoed it. They should shut it down. I'm curious how you would feel about it. Would you also leave that up to the municipals, or would you also not feel?
This was the one that was just medicinal, right?
Correct.
Yeah, no, I would sign that. I'm supportive of medical marijuana. I mean, I tout it regularly when we're talking about the opioid crisis. And I bring it up every opportunity in Washington when I say when we're talking about opioids, we should talk about alternatives for pain management. That could include acupuncture and acupressure. It could include medical marijuana. It includes a number of other types of therapies that aren't going to be effective 100% of the time. I mean, the reasons doctors prescribe opioids is they are very effective at killing pain. But for some subset of that, other less dangerous therapies like medical marijuana can be effective for pain management with far less negative health consequences or risk of addiction. So yes, I would support that.
Are you familiar with the proposed SB 18-279 bill regarding marijuana certification technology?
You'll have to tell me which one that is.
It's something being proposed in the General Assembly to develop some type of technology to track what is legal marijuana through nanoparticles or some other yet to be developed technology.
No, that has a long way to go. That's not ready for. We're not going to. You don't want to tamper with the genes or anything like that. If that's what they're talking about. We want tracking. You have tracking. I mean, you make sure that we know, from the minute it's grown to the consumer where the plant is. It can't leave the chain of a safe, controlled environment. It can't be. If it's transported, it has to be transported safely. It has to be in a dispensary if it's sold. So
They want to track it after the consumer gets it.
yeah, no. This is no, as I said.
I want to make it just like alcohol. Let's do that with alcohol too.
No, it's regulate marijuana like alcohol. I mean, in fact, that's a general viewpoint. It doesn't mean exactly like alcohol in every instance, but it's basically the model is like the alcohol model. So I mean, I've heard about that. The bill doesn't even make sense to me what they're talking about. So I don't even know. Yes, we want. Of course, we have traceability if there's a way with RFID or whatever to make that better. But no, once it's bought, it's bought. I mean, that's it. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. It's hard to
Because they're not worried, you know what it is, they're not worried about the millions of drug dealers that are out there. They know about half of them. They're worried about if I buy some and I smoke it with him and they can test him and say, oh, you smoked some of his, that was medical marijuana, you can't share it, that's fine.
Well, the bill died once already this session and has now been back in for
Look, I mean, here's what you'll have, and I think you don't know you have now. You sometimes do something. So if I'm governor, we still want to stop these stupid bills, but you'll never have to worry about one actually becoming law. I mean, you'll have a veto there. So we don't want them to pass the legislature, and we'll try to stop them, but you never know what they're going to do, and so at least you'll have a backstop there saying, look, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, we don't want to smoke nanoparticles. Sorry.
Yes.
Final question. I saw this post from Denver Normal about states who's starting to introduce bills where they will make it not illegal for employers to test for THC when employing people. I don't know if you have any feels about that.
employer drug testing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And-
Well, right now, and it's an area of law I'd have to bone up on. I mean, the companies I started to run, we never did any drug testing, but I understand when people are operating machinery or lifts, they, for insurance reasons, do it. So I don't know. We'll work with you, but we'll figure it out. All right. I mean, I know the issue in the sense that I understand that people that might have it in their blood from using it on a Friday or Saturday night might not be in any way incapacitated on a Monday. So, but the question is, when are they incapacitated? We do care about workplace safety. You care about workplace safety. We just have to figure that out.
Impairment testing.
What is it?
Impairment testing.
It could be. Yeah. I don't. Whatever the answer is. I mean, Impairment testing is good because also you worry about like what if somebody sleeps 2 hours and then goes to
Right.
work.
Or
That's an
was up with their
impairment.
kid all night.
I mean, that's just as dangerous as if they
Absolutely.
had a beer or two. I mean, there's all kinds of things like that, both on the, now if you take it to the traffic enforcement side or the employer side. So they're not easy issues, they're not like superficial issues, but we're going to roll up our sleeves and work with you to help figure this out.
One of the things that we can help you say that'll help you, when you talk about